The air was thick with smoke and debris, the stars above swallowed by a sky that had turned an unnatural shade of crimson. Adam's body lay sprawled against the wreckage of his small scouting ship, which now lay in twisted metal shards around him. Every breath was an ache, every movement impossible. The last thing he remembered was his ship malfunctioning, plummeting down toward this strange alien world. Now, as he tried to focus, the ground beneath him seemed to blur, shifting between red and deep blue in strange pulses. Above him, an alien sky shimmered with colors he'd never seen before, and somewhere in the distance, he heard footsteps, heavy, powerful, and advancing rapidly. Adam managed to lift his head, blinking through the haze to see a group of tall, imposing figures approaching. They were clad in dark armor that glinted under the alien sun, their faces concealed behind smooth, reflective visors that seemed to amplify their intimidating presence. Their language sounded like a low hum of static and whispers, something almost musical, yet edged with menace. One of the figures crouched, examining him with an expression he couldn't read. After a brief pause, they straightened, saying something in their language that made the others around them laugh a cold, dismissive sound. "He's just a human," one of them muttered in their language, which Adam somehow understood in fragments. "Let him rot here." The others nodded, indifferent. Adam's heart sank, a wave of helplessness crashing over him. He'd come all this way, survived so much, and now he was to be abandoned, left to die on this barren world with no one even bothering to end it quickly. Just as his vision began to darken, another figure stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, her armor more ornate, her posture graceful yet assertive. She knelt by Adam, her gaze piercing and intense. "No," she said, her voice smooth but firm, resonating in the air. "He comes with me." The others glanced at her in confusion, but the woman ignored them. Gently, she placed her hand on his shoulder, and a warmth spread through his aching body. Before he could question anything, his eyelids grew heavy, and he let go, slipping into a deep, comforting darkness as she lifted him from the ground. The first thing Adam noticed when he woke was the warmth. He was lying on a soft, cool surface that seemed to radiate gentle heat, soothing his injuries. As he opened his eyes, he took in the dimly lit room, filled with strange artifacts, walls adorned with shimmering, iridescent patterns that changed color in soft waves. When he attempted to sit up, a gentle hand pressed him back down. "Stay still," a soft voice commanded. He turned his head to see her, the same alien woman who had saved him. Her skin was a striking silver, with a faint, almost ethereal glow that outlined her face and shoulders. Her eyes, a deep violet, watched him with an intensity that was both comforting and disconcerting. She was beautiful in a way he'd never seen before, an almost otherworldly grace emanating from her every movement. "I am Princess Lyra," she said, her voice melodic yet serious. "You were badly injured. I'm surprised you survived it all." "Thank you," Adam murmured, his voice hoarse. "But why did you save me?" "Your people didn't want to." Lyra hesitated, her gaze softening as she looked at him. "My people, they are wary of humans," she replied carefully. "To them, you're an outsider, a potential threat." She paused, a slight frown forming on her delicate features. "But I saw something different in you. You were fighting, even when it seemed hopeless. I couldn't ignore that." Adam felt his throat tighten. He wasn't used to kindness from strangers, much less from aliens who viewed his species with suspicion. Her compassion, though strange to him, felt like a lifeline. He lay back, feeling a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Over the next few days, Lyra visited him regularly, tending to his wounds with strange glowing plants and oils. Each time, he'd watch her in awe as she worked, her movements precise and practiced, her expression focused and serene. He learned bits and pieces about her world, about the complexities of her royal life and her struggle to live by values her people were beginning to forget. One afternoon, as she was dabbing a pale blue salve onto a gash on his arm, Adam found himself asking, "Do you believe in this kindness? In helping others?" Lyra paused, her hand hovering above his skin. "I do," she whispered, almost as if confessing a secret. "But it's a belief that's fading. My people are bound by tradition, by rules. Helping you, it goes against everything they value." He studied her, noticing the shadows under her eyes, the weight she seemed to carry. "Then why help me?" he asked softly. "Because," she said, glancing away, "I feel alone here, Adam. In a world full of people, I feel isolated. When I saw you lying there, fighting to live despite everything, I saw a part of myself in you. A part of me that refuses to give up, no matter what." In that moment, Adam realized that they were bound by more than just circumstance. They were both outcasts in their own ways, both fighting to find meaning and belonging. A strange sense of companionship blossomed between them, an unspoken understanding that comforted them both. But as much as they found solace in each other's presence, an underlying tension remained. Lyra knew her kindness would not go unnoticed by her people for long. And Adam knew that, despite her care, he was still an outsider in a place that saw him as a threat. Their bond, though powerful, was fragile like a flame in the dark, one they both knew could be snuffed out with the slightest breeze. The whispers began before long. Every alien in the palace seemed to know about the human the princess was harboring in her private quarters. Glances of disdain and murmurs of betrayal followed Lyra through the polished marble halls, the silent accusations weighing heavily on her. One evening, her father, King Zephyr, summoned her to the grand chamber. As she entered, Lyra could see the tension in his posture, his normally calm expression hardened with anger. "Lyra," he began, his voice cold and controlled, "tell me why you brought that human into our sanctuary." Lyra met his gaze, refusing to flinch under the weight of his disapproval. "He was left to die," she said quietly. "I couldn't just walk away. Couldn't?" The king's voice rose, sharp with disbelief. "You are the future queen of this realm, Lyra. You do not have the luxury of indulging in weakness. Our people are forbidden from entangling with outsiders. Do you understand what your actions imply? The council is concerned, and the people are losing trust in you." Lyra's heart pounded, but she held her ground. "Father, kindness is not weakness. This human Adam, he has done nothing to harm us. In fact, he is like us in ways you cannot see." "Enough!" King Zephyr's voice echoed through the hall, cold and unyielding. "I have protected this kingdom for longer than you can imagine, Lyra. Our strength lies in our unity, our isolation from those who would destroy us. The human has no place here." "Then perhaps I don't belong here either," Lyra replied, her voice trembling. She knew the weight of her words, felt the sharp sting of her father's disappointment, but she couldn't betray the bond she felt with Adam. "You taught me to stand for what is right, Father, and I believe helping him is right." The king's gaze narrowed, his expression one of profound sadness and anger. "I expected more from you, Lyra," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But if you cannot uphold our traditions, you must accept the consequences." That night, Lyra returned to Adam, her heart heavy with fear and resolve. When she entered his quarters, he looked up, sensing her distress immediately. "What happened?" he asked, reaching for her hand. Lyra took a deep breath, the warmth of his touch grounding her. "The council wants you gone," she admitted, her voice breaking. "They want to banish you, or worse. And if I continue to help you, I might lose everything." Adam's expression softened, his hand tightening around hers. "Lyra, you don't have to do this. You've already done so much for me. I don't want you to suffer because of me." She shook her head, determination in her eyes. "It's too late for that, Adam. I've made my choice. We have to leave, tonight. If we stay, neither of us will be safe." He held her gaze, the enormity of her decision settling between them. "Where will we go?" She offered a small, defiant smile. "There are places even my father fears. And those are exactly where we need to go." In the darkest hours of the night, Lyra and Adam slipped through the palace corridors, guided only by the faint glow of the crystals embedded in the walls. The silence around them was thick, and every shadow felt like a threat. But Lyra moved with a steady confidence that Adam found both reassuring and heartbreaking. She was giving up everything for him. As they reached the outer gate, a group of guards appeared, blocking their path. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The guards' eyes flickered with suspicion, and she could tell they had been expecting her. "Princess Lyra," one of them said, his tone sharp, "by the king's orders, you are to be confined to your quarters until further notice. And the human is to be detained." Lyra glanced at Adam, a silent understanding passing between them. She couldn't let him be taken, not now, not after everything they had sacrificed. Without hesitation, she raised her hand, and a surge of light burst from her fingers, momentarily blinding the guards. "Run!" she shouted, grabbing Adam's hand and pulling him through a narrow side passage. They dashed through the maze-like corridors, heartbeats echoing in sync. As they turned a corner, they could hear footsteps closing in, voices shouting commands to capture the fugitives. Panic gripped Adam as he realized just how far she was willing to go for him, but Lyra's determination never faltered. At last, they reached a hidden exit that led to the wild, untamed lands outside the palace lands her people rarely ventured into, fearing the creatures and mysteries that lurked within. The sky above was a deep indigo, stars casting a dim glow over the rocky terrain. Lyra hesitated, casting a last lingering glance at the kingdom she was leaving behind. "Lyra," Adam began, sensing the pain in her gaze. She shook her head, blinking back tears. "There's nothing for me here anymore," she whispered. "My life was never truly mine. I was trapped in a cage, bound by duty and expectations. You gave me a way out." Adam's heart twisted with emotion. "I didn't mean to pull you away from your home." She turned to him, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. "Adam, I chose this. I chose you, and I would choose you again." They ran into the wilderness, the palace lights fading behind them. But just as they thought they were in the clear, they heard a piercing alarm sound in the distance, the signal for a full-scale search. "They're not going to stop until they find us," Adam said, anxiety gripping him. Lyra squeezed his hand, her voice steady. "Then let's make sure they don't." For hours, they navigated the alien landscape, pushing through dense forests where bioluminescent plants cast eerie shadows, and skirting around deep chasms that glowed with an otherworldly light. Strange creatures lurked in the distance, their eyes reflecting a predatory glint, but Lyra knew this land well. She led Adam with the skill and confidence of someone who had trained for survival her entire life. Finally, just as dawn began to break over the horizon, they found a small cave nestled within the cliffs. Exhausted, they collapsed onto the cold stone floor, their breaths heavy, hearts racing. The cave offered them temporary refuge, and for the first time that night, they felt safe. Adam looked at Lyra, his gaze filled with awe and gratitude. "You gave up everything for me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you." She reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "You don't have to thank me, Adam," she whispered. "You taught me that there's a different way to live, a way that's driven by love, by compassion. Those are things my people have forgotten. And if I have to leave behind my life to find those things again, then I'll do it." In that moment, as they sat side by side, weary but alive, they knew that the path they had chosen was uncertain, filled with danger and exile. But for the first time, they both felt a sense of freedom, a freedom bound by nothing but the stars above them and the unbreakable connection they shared. The morning light crept into the cave, casting a warm glow over Lyra and Adam as they rested side by side, their minds heavy with the choices they'd made. In the silence, they shared a quiet peace, feeling safe for the first time since they fled. But soon, the faint hum of engines filled the air. A patrol ship, searching. Lyra's face hardened with resolve. They'll search everywhere, but there's a valley to the north, hidden deep in the forest. Few dare go there. Even my father's soldiers fear it. Adam met her gaze and nodded. Then let's go. Together. They moved swiftly through the alien wilderness, weaving through dense, glowing foliage and sidestepping creatures that watched them from the shadows. Lyra guided him with confidence, her knowledge of the land leading them deeper into the untouched realm where few had ventured. When they paused by a stream, Lyra looked out over the landscape, a bittersweet expression on her face. I never thought I'd see this place myself. I spent my life following rules, trying to be someone I'm not. Adam looked at her, filled with admiration. Out here, you're free. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. She glanced away, a shadow of sadness in her eyes. But I'm leaving my people and my father behind. I wanted to make him proud, but he'll never forgive me. Adam took her hand, squeezing gently. You've chosen to fight for something real, something worth everything. They shared a silent, deep understanding, finding comfort in each other. Their peace was broken by approaching footsteps, her father's soldiers, faces masked with regret. Lyra, one of them called. We don't want to hurt you, but we must bring you back. Your father has given orders. Adam stepped in front of her protectively, but Lyra held him back, stepping forward herself. I love my kingdom and my family, but I can't be the person you want. I have chosen my path. The soldiers hesitated, glancing at one another, before the leader finally bowed his head. Then go, princess. None of us will stop you. They turned back into the forest, leaving Adam and Lyra alone once more. As they watched the soldiers disappear, Lyra released a breath, the weight of her choice settling. Adam took her hand. Lyra, you did it. You're free. She smiled, a spark of hope in her eyes. We did it. And now we have the rest of the universe ahead. Hand in hand, they continued into the unknown, guided by the stars and the promise of a future they would build together, a future free from the chains of their past, bound by courage and a love that no kingdom could destroy.